Prediction time ahead of this weekend's game. LA hosting the Arizona Cardinals. But before we get to that, got a couple key matchups on the horizon for our Redbirds. Bo Brock, let's start with Michael Wilson against the Rams secondary.
Yeah, as we saw, 31st ranked secondary, and Kobe Durant, big reason for that. Actually, you look at issues just all over the secondary, but you got to identify Durant, who would primarily be on Wilson's side of the field and in coverage against their Z receiver here. Michael Wilson, 15 catches for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both those came against the Niners, and he only had the 2 catches in the previous game. So most of those are through 4 weeks of play. And going up against the guy who's surrendered 15 catches, 200 yards allowed, and had 2 penalties in coverage. So Kobe Durant seems to be somebody that they can expose. I mean, I don't think that it's much better on the other side of the field for the Rams when you look at a fellow Witherspoon, who's been penalized, I believe, 5 times on the season. So you've got some options here with Hollywood Brown and Michael Wilson to go against this secondary. But I like this one, with Michael Wilson to have a bounce back. Big 6'2", almost 6'3" receiver going up against a 5'11". That's South Carolina State product. Ooh. Kobe Durant.
Kobe, no Jalen Ramsey man in the secondary anymore. Those days are long over for the LA Rams. So yeah, I love that matchup, and I think let's get Michael Wilson on quick screens. Let's get him on quick slants. Let's get him the ball and allow him to break tackles, because I think that, again, he's got that capability in his game, and they haven't unlocked it yet. Now, the Cardinals need to unlock some pressure. We talked about in our first segment. You talked about the returning Jonathan Ledbetter against one of my draft crushes during the offseason, TCU, now LA Rams guard Steve Avila. Ledbetter, who is poised to return from a 2-week absence, 8 pressures, 7 hurries, 1 sack. Steve Avila, who, again, could turn out into a nice pro. He's not there yet. Has surrendered 15 pressures allowed, 3 quarterback hits, and a sack. I think this is a combination. Ledbetter, let's get Stills. The rookie looked fantastic last week. Let's just start sending people at number 73.
Get after him.
It's hard to play offensive linemen in the NFL. That's why I think not enough good things you can say about guys like Paris Johnson Jr., who are making it, frankly, look easy week in and week out. But the Rams, if you're going to beat Stafford, you have to get in his face.
You do.
I need bodies barreling on top of Matthew Stafford by the end of that game. Let the chips fall where they may. I also think Gannon does not like to blitz. I think this is a game where you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. Because if the Cardinals aren't winning, Bo, a quarter of the way in with front four, with 4-man pressure, you guys start sending people at Stafford's ass. And you up the gut, make him uncomfortable because you're white. Like, get people in his face. This is, I rip on Isaiah Simmons. This is what they did once upon a time with Isaiah Simmons. Like, get tall men in front of Stafford to manipulate his vision looking downfield. And if he's able to hit Cooper Kupp 30 yards downfield, miraculous throw and catch, like, I'm gonna be okay being beat with that. What I'm not gonna be okay with is if Ledbetter and Zaven Collins and Dennis Gardeck are unable to generate any kind of pressure, and it's Stafford super comfortable, like Joe Burrow was last week, 5, 6, 7 seconds in the pocket, just dinking and dunking. That's why the completion percentage has been so high each of the last couple weeks. So I'm going to give the defensive line and Ledbetter against Steve Avila about a quarter. And if you don't have your shit together and it looks like last week and the week before that, then I'm sending the house, and you kind of let the chips fall where they may.
I mean, it's Avila. It's, a combination of who they've been starting at center, whether it's, Brian Allen's been dealing with injuries, or Coleman Shelton, who's been there as well at the center spot. And then Joe Noteboom, who's been brutal as far as at the other guard spot. Like, they are so vulnerable in the interior of this offensive line that this no-name Cardinals defensive line unit, we know it because we've either been shouting obscenities about it, or we've been, waxing poetic about this rotation that Rollis has sometimes worked to a really good spot. It's got to be the latter there, going up against the interior of this offensive line. Absolutely, Arizona. Pressure up the middle is key for Stafford, and that's where you can get it. I mean, we talk about Avila, who's given up 15 pressures, and then you look at the rest of the guys, it's like you got Coleman Shelton, who was the center there in spot, and he could be back out there again. He's also given up 15 pressures. And then next on it is Noteboom, who's given up 13 pressures. Like, All the pressure's coming up the middle against the Rams. Arizona Cardinals can't be the team that, just like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow were struggling going into last week. It can't be a get-right game for the interior of the Rams offensive line. It's got to start with Ledbetter and the team to say, oh, that's what we were missing. Led's been out. Bedwetter hasn't been out there. He's back out there. Let's get it going.
How dare you, Mr. Bedwetter? Are the Cardinals going to wet the bed this weekend? It's prediction time. I'll get it started, Bo Brock. Here's who I like and maybe what I don't like ahead of this Sunday's matchup. The offensive star, we've talked about it, Michael Wilson. If Cardinals are going to be in this game, number 14 has to play a part in it offensively. Hollywood Brown can't do it by himself. Michael Wilson egregiously only 2 targets last week. He came down with one miraculous catch. Get this dude the ball in space. Joshua Dobbs is not a good enough quarterback right now to not feed Michael Wilson the football. With respect to everybody else, Zach Pascal and Zach Ertz, I don't want to see those targets, not early in this game. Rotate off of Hollywood and Michael Wilson, as we've talked about it for the entirety of the show. This Rams secondary is ass. If they're able to pressure well, to pass protect well, Cardinals offensive line is healthy and they're getting Dennis Daly back this week. You ought to be able to throw on this Rams secondary. Defensive star, he had an interception last week. Friend of the program, the Greg Dortch podcast, Kayvon Wallace. I think Kayvon Wallace right now is an NFL starting caliber safety, and the Cardinals need him to step up with no Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker. This is one of Jonathan Gannon's favorite people on the Arizona Cardinals. They claimed him. He's been a stalwart right now. He's played almost 100% of the snaps since he's got here. I think he needs to set the tone and help these young cornerbacks on the back end the best that he can. He knows Puka. He knows Cooper Kupp. Playing in Philadelphia, they saw the LA Rams plenty of times. Obviously, Puka's a rookie this year. But this should not be a deer in the headlights kind of game for Kayvon Wallace. As Brian Baldinger has said many times on this show, he just needed opportunities. Dobbs needed opportunities. Kayvon Wallace, 4th rounder out of Clemson, needed opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, like Keontae Ingram, it's now or never. You want to be a part of this backfield in 2024? I think Deer Mercado is going to get his touches. There's only one player on this team that's going to get the ball in short yardage. On the goal line, 3rd and 2, it's going to be Keontae Ingram. Respectfully for Deer Mercado, Keontae Ingram has a very similar body type to James Conner. It's the reason they named him RB2 coming into this season. If you're a fantasy enthusiast, this is who's going to be touching the ball in the red zone. So I think he could help himself. He's been out for a couple weeks. He's poised to return, as you said in the first segment, trending up with his neck injury. Let's help your teammates. Break some tackles. Do your best James Conner impression. Final score prediction, unfortunately, 30-17 is what I'm going to go with. I hope it doesn't happen. But this defense, to me, man, I got to see it. Can you hang and can they catch their breath for 4 quarters? If they can, I like the Cardinals' chances. The 17 points is more a reflection right now of the defense just not being able to get off the field.
Yeah. And look, the Rams have suffered, some 4th quarter downfalls as well, just because of their lack of depth as far as the talent deficiency against the rest of the league. And maybe in this game is where the Cardinals can kind of keep it tighter than we've seen at least the previous 2 weeks. But yeah. I like your predictions. I think they're pretty solid. Fantasy enthusiasts, you're talking to the number 1 fantasy team in the PHNX league right now. Just beat up on Damon. I've already beat up on Johnny. So it's an exciting time. Of course, yes, I am a fantasy enthusiast. I'm probably the most enthusiastic.
Let's get your predictions. Good hell, this is painful. Just move on. Should we talk about Stafford's wife going into labor again?
Can we get her some pad thai, extra spicy? Send her some sriracha with that. Let's get to this. This is got to be a big Joshua Dobbs day, right? Joshua Dobbs had a decent first half before a catastrophic pick 6, backed up on their own goal line. He's got to take care of the ball. He knows that, and he's got a big opportunity against a bad Rams secondary. We've talked about it all afternoon. Joshua Dobbs, it's got to be his type of day. I'm talking 2 to 3 passing touchdowns. If that's there, the Arizona Cardinals are going to be in this contest going up against the Rams in a potential shootout. But if they don't want it to be a shootout, if they want to get some stops, it's got to come from their defensive front, that front 7, and the guy that's been playing at the highest level this season has been Dennis the Barbarian Gardeck, and his 4 sacks. Can he rack up some more sacks against this Rams offensive line? Now, of course, we talked about the pressure in the interior. They need to get that all game, and then they need to supplement it with the guys on the edge, and that has to be Dennis Gardeck And then my X factor actually is your defensive player of the game, Kayvon Wallace, because the biggest difference maker has been this season has been whether or not the defense can get stops. So I think my X factor has to come from the defensive side of the football. Can they get enough stops? Can they get turnovers to put the Cardinals offense back out there on the field and not chasing points like they have the last 2 weeks? 34-24, I've got the Rams winning this one.
I mean,
just hoping for, a tighter I don't think this is a game that the Cardinals can't win. I mean, they beat Dallas for the love of God. Right. But, what we've seen, the trends are telling us, that this has been a team that has gone away in the fourth quarter, and the talent deficiency and discrepancy between them and the other NFL teams has been flexed. And the Arizona Cardinals, they got to do something to combat that. And, I think they're capable of doing it. But Nick Rallis and this defense, I'm putting the emphasis on them to keep them in this game, to get those stops and those turnovers that are necessary in order to get a dub.
Dylan Richards saying in the chat, 1-5, yuck. And again, like that, it's going to be so fascinating to watch this team with players on the horizon coming back, seeing if they can't weather the storm in these next couple weeks. Like, can they somehow scratch and claw and get a win against the Rams or the Seahawks or Baltimore at home, get some momentum? Because the soft spot of that schedule is coming up. I mentioned it. Houston, Atlanta, right? The Browns right now are an absolute shit show, shambles, starting XFL quarterbacks. They're wishing they had our boy Joshua Dobbs. Instead, they benched DTR. Like, there's a point in November where the schedule flips and it's a lot of meh. Can the Cardinals get to that point with more than one win? I think they can. Maybe it starts this week. We're excited to break it down because we're going to be with all of you this Sunday with our friends at BetMGM at the Great Lawn State Farm Stadium. Come out. It's the watch party of all watch parties. As Bo and I have mentioned time and time again, you rock a little merch from the PHNX merchandise locker, hat and or shirt. It can be something other than PHNX Cardinals. We'll forgive you, right? There's a lot of banger sports right now going on in the Valley, covered only by PHNX Sports at the elite level. We're going to hook you up with a brewski on the house. Come out. Definitive watch party. Myself, Bo Brock, Britton Golden, former Arizona Cardinal wide receiver, pre-halftime, post-game show. And in the meantime, perfect primer to get ready for Sunday. And next Sunday, we've got a watch party. Go PHNX.com, become a diehard, read the many workings of the great PHNX Cardinal beat reporter Howard Balzer. 90% of his articles are free. That sweet 10%. You got to sign up to become a diehard. Every single year you're a diehard, you're going to get copped a hat and or shirt for free. You're also going to get 20% off all future events with PHNX Cardinals. But guess what? Watch along starting this Sunday. They are free. Become a diehard. Head out to BetMGM this weekend. Let's have a great time.